to Viewpoint from Overseas. I'm your host Faraz Darwish. We are again in a backyard somewhere in a nice Silicon Valley. Our dear friend Misbah Azam, he is still traveling. Hopefully by next week we'll have a show from our regular studio. So topic number one, the H-1B crackdown that's been happening in US. There have been some companies which have been involved in some dubious and some suspicious activities, and looks like FBI is cracking down on them. So we'll discuss that, and then we'll discuss the first 100 days of President Donald Trump. We'll go in depth to see what has happened, which were positive. I mean, the positive decisions he has taken and the negative decisions he has taken, and then we will discuss the 34-country alliance led by Saudi Arabia, which the former Pakistani Chief of Army Staff, Gen Raheel Sharif, is going to lead. What will be the implication of this alliance if Gen Raheel Sharif, of former Pakistani Chief of Army Staff, were to lead this alliance? What will happen in terms of sectarian clashes between Saudi and Iran rift? So I have with me Riaz, looking good again. Tell me what is happening on this whole H-1B crackdown. And looks like there were some companies which were involved in fraud activities. Tell us what is
actually this issue of H-1B has been brought to the fore since President Obama began his campaign, and he's been talking about hiring Americans for American.
That was his election pitch.
Yeah, yeah, and he continues to repeat that. So a couple of weeks ago, CBS 60 Minutes, which is a very popular show, did a segment on this. And they showed how the H-1B visa program is being abused by certain Indian body shops. Okay. The original intent of the program, the H-1B program, was to fill the gaps wherever they couldn't find Americans to find foreign candidates who could be brought into the United States on a H-1B visa to work in the high-tech industry. But in fact, what's been one of the provisions in this is that, as long as you pay, $60,000 or more, then you don't have to worry about, justifying that you're not replacing an American.
Right. Okay.
So that provision is being abused widely because there's a huge differential in salaries, if you know. I mean, for Silicon Valley, for example, an average software engineer makes about $110,000, $112,000 a year, and when they can replace that engineer by $60,000 a year engineer, it saves them a lot of money.
Right.
And there are two very high-profile cases that happened recently. One was at UC San Francisco, where they fired their entire IT staff, and they outsourced the business to an Indian body shop. They brought in Indians, and they...
when you say body shop, what do you mean? IT consulting company, right?
Well, these are basically companies that provide bodies, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, companies like Cognizant or Tata Consulting or Infosys, they bring in large numbers of Indians to work here. So what they did was they made the locals, the American workers, train their replacements, and that made them very angry that we're basically, one of them said that it was like being asked to dig your own grave.
Okay.
So that has now there are a number of proposals in Congress to try and change the program in a way that it cannot be abused. One of the proposals is to raise the minimum salary, from $60,000 to $100,000. Another proposal is to raise it to $120,000 a year.
Oh, that will not save them any money then.
Yeah, so
might as well hire somebody locally.
Takes away the incentive
Right.
for saving money. I mean, they'll only hire when they have to, when they can't find a
Right.
local person. The other proposal is to cut the number of H-1B visas in half.
Okay.
Like it's 85,000 or 100,000. I'll cut it down to 50% of that.
Okay.
So that's what's going on right now.
So tell us more about the first 100 days of President Donald Trump. Obviously, there has been a lot of controversies happening. So tell us, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think we know that there's a number of things he's tried to do which have not worked out for him. The first thing he tried was the Muslim travel ban,
Right.
and that was blocked by judges. He modified it and issued another executive order. That too was blocked by judges. And now yesterday I heard that the judge in Hawaii has extended his block for indefinitely until the case is resolved.
Right. And then the episode of General Michael Flynn.
Yeah. Then the healthcare thing. That was
Right.
the second thing that happened. They've been talking about, repealing Obamacare and replacing it with something better, which is what they claim would be better. That actually went down in defeat in Congress. They didn't have enough votes to pass that. And then there's this Russia probe, the Russian influence in the U.S. elections to try to help President Trump win the election. And news has just come out just in the last hour or so. I heard, this is through Wall Street Journal, that Michael Flynn, who was President Trump's national security advisor, and before that, he was a part of his campaign, who'd been talking with the Russian ambassador and other Russian officials, and he had to resign. He has now offered to testify to the FBI into U.S. Congress in exchange for immunity from prosecution. That he's ready to talk as long as, in exchange for that, they will not prosecute him. So when somebody asks for immunity from prosecution, that's an indication that there has been something wrong, done. It's a violation of the laws and the Constitution has occurred, from which they're looking for immunity. So that has raised even more suspicion about the conduct of Mr. Trump and his campaign advisors.
So, tell us, moving forward, do you see bright future of President Trump's team in the upcoming days?
Usually the first 100 days for a new president are very important. What happens is that a lot of your enemies basically, stop making a lot of noise. They become quiet. They give you a honeymoon period. And in that period, you have an opportunity to deliver some things, to get some legislation done, to get some things passed. That hasn't been the case with Mr. Trump. He's been so preoccupied with these controversies. And then two of his initiatives we talk about have been defeated essentially. And the third one, the tax reform, is probably not going to go well either, for the simple reason that healthcare is a huge sector in the U.S. economy. It is 17% of the U.S. GDP goes into the healthcare. Now, what they were trying to do was trying to cut money out of healthcare, essentially to give a big tax break to the richest people, the businesses and the people with the most amount of money, the investors. Now, the fact that they failed in delivering on the healthcare promise has put a big question mark on whether or not they'd be able to pass tax reform.
See, the question really becomes, from a President Trump's perspective, he's trying to fulfill all the promises he made during the election campaign.
Yeah, but he also said that I'm a very good negotiator. I know how to make deals because I come from the private sector. And what these show is that he's not very good at it.
So he's not able to cut the deal, but he's trying.
Trying doesn't get you any points.
He could
what
go
gets
to his
you
followers.
Points is the results. The results aren't there, so they're not going to get any points for it.
Right. Okay. I want to move towards what's happening in Pakistan lately, and there's been a lot of controversy, and it's been now pretty much clear that the former chief of staff, Gen Raheel Sharif, is going to lead the alliance of 34 Muslim countries, which is basically Saudi alliance. First, tell me, that entire alliance is pretty ambiguous. I'm not able to kind of see the objective of this alliance. What is the objective? Is it to defeat the Saudi backyard in Yemen? What is this alliance about? Tell us about the alliance.
The stated objective, in fact, it's called an alliance against terrorism.
Right.
That's what it says. And the problem is, though, I think I read a piece that Mr. Zahid Hussain wrote in Dawn, that he's going to be the chief of Phantom Army. So where's the army that he's going to lead? It's basically just a Saudi army. There's nobody. And Saudi army already has its chief of staff. So The other thing that I'm hearing a lot of people talk about, at least in the world media, they're talking about a Muslim NATO,
Okay.
that they're going to have a coalition force of all the Muslim nations. I don't see
So
that.
is it the same? Is it the Muslim NATO we were talking about in 34 Muslim countries?
Yeah. So it's being dubbed as Muslim NATO. So I think there's a lot of questions about it. But I think the bottom line, the way I see it, is that, it was a few years ago that Adel Jubeir, who's now the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, he used to be Saudi ambassador to the United States. He had said at one point that we, the Saudis, are not just observers of what happens in Pakistan. We are participants, we're players. So I think the influence in Pakistan is very strong.
Right.
And if every one of our rulers basically, after they come in, or even when they leave, they go to Saudi Arabia to meet with the king. So look at Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif.
Right.
He was very close to them, and then when he was removed from power by Musharraf, he went to Saudi Arabia to live there. They gave him asylum. Musharraf himself went there to looking for help from the Saudis.
So
Our friend, even Zardari, who's supposedly not very pro-Arab, where is his home? Whenever he gets in trouble, he goes to United Arab Emirates, which is essentially part of this coalition of the Saudi alliance.
But I'm not sure what objectives will they achieve. Are they going to defeat the Houthi forces in Yemen? Are they going to lead and defeat the ISIS? Because Saudis are not putting up any fight to defeat ISIS.
I'm not sure what the objective is. To be honest with you, it looks more like an anti-Iran alliance.
Okay, but they don't openly say.
Because all the Sunni forces are in there, and none of the Shia forces are in it. So that's an indication that it could be just an anti-Iran, anti-Shia alliance.
But not an anti-ISIS alliance.
Well, they might. It depends. If ISIS threatens them, they may do something against ISIS.
Meaning Saudis will probably.
Saudis will.
Okay.
But I think one of the problems that I see is that, and we can talk a little bit about what the U.S. is doing right now in Mosul, is that the U.S. invasion of Iraq has unleashed very powerful sectarian forces in the region. What happened was that when al-Maliki took over, he was very openly sectarian. He actually was very rough with the Sunnis. And because the Sunnis didn't trust him and his government, a lot of them joined ISIS. So it became a Sunni-Shia fight. Now, even if we militarily defeat ISIS now in Iraq, in Syria, that problem is not going to go away. It used to be Al-Qaeda in Iraq that morphed into ISIS, and it could morph into something else.
And now it has become a franchiser in Afghanistan.
Yeah, so that's the problem that we're facing with.
Right. So now coming back, now you brought up a good point that it could be an anti-Iran alliance. If that is so, then General Raheel Sharif, who is a Pakistani, a neighbor of Iran, and supposedly an ally of Iran, is going to lead the alliance against Iran?
Well, that's where I'm not certain that he has agreed to do that. I think one of the things I'm hoping, and that's to hope, I'm not sure it's going to happen, is that he may bring his own wisdom to this job, and he may persuade them some moderation, that instead of making it an anti-Iran alliance, the truth is that there's a bigger threat to Saudi Arabia comes from ISIS.
Right.
They're much more determined.
And it may even be from within.
Yeah.
Right.
So actually they have ISIS within. If you look at the ideology, it is not very different.
Yeah, so is the ISIS. There is a whole article in New York Times.
The fountainhead of the ideology.
ISIS teaches the Saudi curriculum in their schools.
Yeah, and one of the Saudi scholars said this, that our beliefs are the same, our ideology is the same. We just express it in different ways.
Now, that brings me to another topic, and which I wasn't planning to discuss, but now I'm going to have to discuss with you. So then President Trump openly said that we're going to go after ISIS, we're going to defeat ISIS, the threat number one is ISIS. Prince Salman was here like 2-3 weeks back, met President Trump, and looks like they have a pretty solid alliance emerging back again. So, I mean, I don't understand then how will US play in this game if Saudis are not going to defeat ISIS, or they will spend their energies, to working against Iran in that region. That will simply benefit ISIS,
I mean,
and then it's not going to serve US purpose.
One explanation of this could be that reducing Iran's influence could reduce the sectarian forces, the Shia sectarian forces, and that could help allay the concerns of a lot of the Sunnis that the Shias are taking over and they're going to oppress them.
Well,
Because that's how it started. Remember, a lot of the Sunni forces in Iraq joined with ISIS after they saw the Maliki government supported by Iran committing atrocities against the Sunni
No, understand,
population there.
but then Al Qaeda existed even when there was no Al Maliki there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
these guys, the ISIS guys, are really former Al Qaeda guys, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
the
ISIS and
the morphing happened. There is a big difference, by the way, between Al Qaeda and ISIS. One big difference is that Al Qaeda was not really looking to establish a state. They were more of just go kill a bunch of people. ISIS is looking to establish a state. And in fact, they hold territory now. That's
Right.
one of the differences. The other important difference between Al Qaeda and ISIS is that Al Qaeda was really not as sectarian.
Well, no, they
ISIS
were
is
pretty
much-
sectarian.
Oh no!
Al Qaeda was
I
pretty
remember
sectarian.
when Musab al-Zarqawi was attacking Shias in Iraq. This guy, the second in command,
So okay, I saw that.
he actually told him not to do this. Don't
See-
target
see-
the Shias. They're not your enemy.
right. So I mean, that kind of
This happened,
It's
actually. He
a chi-
actually
it's-
sent out a
It's
note
actually
there.
a chicken and egg thing, because Al Maliki says, okay, well, we were ruthless because of people like Al Zarqawi going and killing or destroying our shrines. This is a whole
No,
shrine
but
thing.
by that time, al-Zarqawi was gone. What happened was the
No.
Americans started a thing called the Awakening.
Right.
Okay, and the Awakening was essentially what this was done by General Petraeus. General Petraeus made a deal with the Sunni tribes there that they will get money and weapons from the United States if they cut their ties and fight Al-Qaeda.
Right.
And they did. And in fact, Al-Qaeda was, as a result of that, was destroyed in that part of the world. This was during the Alawi regime. And then came Al-Maliki. Al-Maliki became very sectarian. He's the guy who actually, he ordered the execution of a Sunni vice president in Iraq. So this created a lot of the problem. I mean, you go back in history,
I'm not sure.
all of
I'm
this
not
is
sure
documented.
whether he ordered the execution, but here's my point. I mean, now coming back to Pakistan, there's two school of thought on this topic. One is saying we should stay away from any Saudi
I agree.
ventures. That's number one. The thought number two is we have no choice, but therefore we're gonna.
No,
support
I
Saudis.
think we have a choice. I think we should not be participating in this sectarian war, because participating in the sectarian war would only make things worse for Pakistan. It's not a good idea for Pakistan.
So you're
to
saying General Raheel Sharif should not even get involved in this?
I mean, if I were Raheel Sharif, I wouldn't take this job. I think this is not this.
It has
this is not a-
impacted his legacy as well. His legacy of going after terrorists. I mean, he has become controversial.
I mean, the
after this
reason why
recently.
the Saudis picked him is because he was very successful against the terrorists. But at the same time, it has created this impression, and probably this strong justification for it, is that Saudis may be wanting to use him for their own sectarian ends,
Right, which will not be.
and
good for
that's not a
Pakistan,
good thing
yeah.
for Pakistan.
Right, right.
So Pakistan should say, hey, this guy is an individual. He wants to go work there. We don't agree with what he's doing, but we're gonna let him do this.
You brought
So
up.
there's a difference between allowing somebody to do something and endorsing what they're doing.
Okay, so now you kind of, took it to the next level, and I wasn't planning to discuss this topic, but now Pakistan itself, I mean, we say that, General Raheel Sharif has defeated the terrorism in Waziristan, but now we still have all these other groups, like other sectarian groups, they're still roaming around freely. Now we have a new operation, Operation Radal Fasad, happening in Punjab, apparently, which I'm not sure if, the current status of that. But recently, the newly appointed Pakistani ambassador to US has said that Haqqani network, which U.S. and Pakistan have been arguing over for more than a decade, is not a friend of Pakistan. Do you see a policy shift here, or are we just trying to appease the
No, I don't.
Trump regime?
I don't think so. I think if you, I mean, I heard General Petraeus talk about this particular issue in answer to a question that was raised at RUSI. It's a think tank in London, and he said that Pakistan is not supporting Haqqanis. His assessment of the situation is that Haqqanis are there, and this was before Rad al-Fasad and before these other operations.
About probably you're talking about 2011.
Yeah. That these guys are there, and Pakistan does not want to start another war, another civil war, by attacking these people. So the point is that I don't think Pakistan is actively supporting these guys, but they have been essentially ignoring them. They say, okay,
they're not ready to put up a multiple fight.
Exactly. So that's what the issue has been. Now the reality today is that Haqqanis are not there anymore. They have actually established themselves in Afghanistan itself. There are certain areas in Afghanistan which are completely beyond the control of the Afghan government and the United States forces, like Paktika province, for example.
Right.
And they've taken over those places, so they don't have presence in Pakistan.
So all of this comes down to the good relation between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, looks like both countries have been pointing fingers at each other. Pakistan claims that you are supporting the terrorists who are threat to us, and India has a heavy presence there. And Afghanistan has been pointing fingers, saying you've been supporting Afghan Taliban. This whole chaos, I don't think until this whole chaos exists, none of these countries will be able to defeat
these are
extremism
problems,
and
but
terrorism.
my sense is that Afghan government is really not even relevant in all of this.
What do you mean?
I mean, they have no control over what's going on in Afghanistan.
You mean they are powerless?
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
I think they're becoming more and more redundant as a result of the changes that have occurred in the last few years. Even the countries like Russia and Iran that used to support the Afghan government have basically abandoned any hope that they're going to be able to achieve anything. And now their focus is not on fighting the Taliban, but on fighting ISIS.
So, you mean Iran's and Russia's focus is to fight ISIS, not the Afghan Taliban, which means they are supporting Afghan Taliban, or
They're not.
not?
There could be. I mean, there is an accusation. Americans are actually accusing them of supporting the Afghan Taliban.
Accusing who? Russia or the Iran?
Americans are accusing both Iran and Saudi and Russia of supporting.
Well, Saudi Arabia could be supporting them too.
Who knows? I mean, I don't.
This is a dirty political
know
game
that
happening
for a fact,
in that
but
region.
the intelligence agencies do things that you and I don't know for sure.
Right.
Whatever serves their purpose.
Pakistan has a pretty serious concern that India is involved in destabilizing Pakistan through Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Now that claim, and it's a pretty serious claim because we see the insurgency happening in Balochistan, and I think they have come out. Indians.
Oh, it's become very obvious now. It's
right,
not a hidden thing anymore.
Right. So I think if you're saying that Afghan government is no longer relevant, then are we saying that all these other groups, Indians, have taken over? Or, I mean, what is the...
Yeah, see, what happens is that when there is chaos in a country, intelligence agencies play their games.
Okay.
And it's RAW, it's ISI, it's the Russian intelligence, it's the Afghan intelligence, the Iranian intelligence. They're all playing their games because it's essentially become a big proxy war.
Right. Riyaz, as we're coming to an end, if you have any other topic to discuss, I think otherwise we can wrap up the show. If you have any other topic to discuss, I think.
No, I think that'll
okay.
be it.
Audience, continue to watch Viewpoint from Overseas. Hopefully next week we'll be recording our show in our studio. Thank you very much.